feel a light misting. Is everybody okay?
Yes.
All right, we're going to soldier through. Please welcome back, after an amazing debut not so long ago. Couldn't wait to have her back, Kara Lopez-Lee.
Thank you so much for doing this. Now it really feels like the holidays, doesn't it?
Boom.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
So this is called the tamale incident. Sometimes I feel like a failed Mexican woman. I never became fluent in Spanish, never had kids, and I confess, I never learned to make tamales. If my beloved grandmother were still with us, she'd say, "You see, mija, you really don't know Spanish. It's tamales, not tamales." That's right. But tamales are my favorite Mexican Christmas tradition, and I first had them when I was a little kid, when Grandma used to take me to her aunt's house at the holidays. And traditionally, they take many hands to make, but I didn't know that because our whole family always left it up to my unmarried, middle-aged cousin Sally to slave away alone in the kitchen. And I remember her smearing the cornmeal masa into the corn husks and then plopping in the shredded pork and red chile filling and then rolling them into little bundles to steam. But how she conjured this brujeria, this witchcraft, no idea. I was too busy screaming up and down the stairs with my other little cousins, throwing things down my aunt's laundry chute, you know, like keys, shoes, the figurines from the nativity scene, you know, whatever. You know, anything to keep ourselves entertained until tamale time. And it was my grandma who first taught me how to open mine. You just untie the little bow and unwrap the husk and reveal the doughy, steaming treat inside, a tamale. The first gift of Christmas. So my grandma actually raised me, and she made me plenty of Mexican comfort foods, like albóndigas, which is meatball soup, or cocido, which is beef bone soup. Okay, so I like soup. But she warned me, "Mija, if you don't learn to cook, no man will ever marry you." I was a little skeptical because my grandpa left my grandma when I was 12. and then she had to go back to work, so she didn't have time to teach me to cook. If I wanted Mexican food when she was working, well, I just scrambled up some chorizo and eggs. But then when I was 17, my dad married his 5th wife. Yeah, you heard that right. And Naomi, was 26, but already a master of the art of Mexican cooking. Pumpkin empanadas, chilaquiles, and my favorite, anything spicy enough to make me cry. But Naomi hated me. I will admit, by then there was not much left to like, because after a parade of stepmoms, I'd grown very cagey and distant around women. And so I didn't know how to relate to her. We didn't talk much. But then after about 2 years, when I was 19, on Thanksgiving, she invited me. She said, "Kara, why don't you come over on Christmas Eve and we'll make tamales together?" And I was terrified to spend time alone with her in a kitchen, no less, where I am a klutz. But I was more scared to say no to a stepmother. So I said, okay. And then between Thanksgiving and Christmas Eve, a few things happened. I lost my job, lost my apartment, my car broke down, and my boyfriend dumped me. Overwhelmed, I dropped out of school, moved back in with my grandma, and I sort of spent a month in a sleepwalking triangle from like the bed to the fridge to the TV. And I forgot about Naomi's tamale invite. In my defense, she never mentioned it since Thanksgiving, until the night before Christmas Eve. I come home after a late night out with friends, and I find a note on the kitchen table in my grandma's angry handwriting. It said, "Naomi called. She said to show up tomorrow at 9 a.m. sharp, underline, or don't bother showing at all. Exclamation point, exclamation point. And I am outraged. Does she think I don't have a life? I've made plans. I called all my friends and told them I'm baking cookies and delivering them tomorrow morning. So I decide to take her up on her offer of don't bother coming at all. I figure if she's joking, it'll be fine to show up a couple of hours before dinner. And if she's serious, screw her. So in the morning, I bake snickerdoodles. Not Mexican, but oh so buttery delicious. And I deliver them to everybody, and then I pick up Grandma and I take her over to Dad's at like 3 p.m. Plenty of time to make tamales. Or so I thought, because I never learned how to Mexican. Oh, by the way, I tell this story years later to a Mexican girlfriend who looks at me like I slapped her upside the face with a tortilla. She's like, you didn't show for the tamalada? And so a tamalada is a tamale making party. And I said, not a party, just 2 people. Doesn't matter. It's a tamalada. Okay, but at 19, I had no idea I was treading on sacred ground. And so my dad, when we show up in the car, he runs out to the car to head me off and warn me, Naomi is furious. I try to explain my take on her message, but when I say it out loud, it sounds kind of stupid. And he suggests I apologize. So I slink into the kitchen, just shaking, and she is standing at the stove stirring something. Don't know what it is, just that it's not tamales. And I say, Naomi, I am so sorry. And there was supposed to be more to this speech, like all the bad things that had happened to me and how her message made me feel like she really didn't want me there. But the sobs just hit me out of nowhere like an asthma attack, and all of a sudden I can't breathe, and I'm just like, I had a bad day. And she hugs me. Well, sort of. It's more like she's demonstrating proper frame for ballroom dancing. And she pats me and says, it's okay, Kara, don't torture yourself. I don't remember but 2 things about dinner. 1, silence, and 2, there are no tamales. Afterward, I ask her if she wants help with the dishes, and she refuses. She'd rather just attack the dinnerware by herself while my dad and my grandma and I chat at the kitchen table. But then suddenly she thrusts a pot into the suds like she wants to drown it and says, I am so tired of this game Kara is playing. And my dad looks at my grandma and says, Mom, let's leave these 2 alone. And my dad walks out, and my grandma follows him with one last look over her shoulder, like she's looking at a dead man walking. And Naomi sits across from me, and I gotta tell you, I almost fall asleep right then. That's how much I want to escape. She says, you know, Kara, I invited you to make tamales as a gesture of friendship, and you not showing was a slap in my face. And I say, well, I did show after I kept my other commitments, and you saying, or don't bother coming at all, felt like a slap in my face. She says, well, that was a joke. Really? Then why'd you expect me to follow it like a command? Okay, bottom line, we don't trust each other. I have spoiled her fantasy of 2 women sharing a Christmas tradition, and the significance is lost on me because I have no memories of bonding with women in a kitchen. I try to explain that I had no idea that tamales take all day. She says, I don't buy that. I think you haven't wanted me around from the start. And I think, oh, she's afraid of the same thing I am. And so I say, oh, I'm so sorry. It's just really hard for me to get close to women. You know, the last 3 times my father remarried, I thought this is going to be my new mom. And then she was gone. This only makes her madder. She says, I am not just another of your father's wives. I'm here to stay, so get used to it. The only thing that ends this argument is the stroke of midnight, when she announces, it's time to open gifts. We all gather around the Christmas tree. My grandma and my dad ripping into their presents with forced merriment. Wow, this is so great. And my stepmother and I just sort of woodenly peeling paper and tape going, thanks. And then we all go to bed. And Naomi refuses to speak to me for months. Until one day, my grandma suggests, Mija, you know, one way to win people over is to ask their advice. So I call Naomi and I ask her advice about school, men, career, anything. And she gives the worst advice, which I never follow. But I keep calling and asking for years. And my grandma's advice does work. Naomi and I develop a grudging friendship. She even thanks me for how thoughtful I am about keeping in touch, until she finally dies of cancer at 44. But not before leaving behind a gift. My baby sister, who was 2. And my sister is now 26, and I'm 59, and we're very close. And she loves when I share with her stories about her mom. She thinks the tamale incident is hilarious. She died before my sister was old enough to know her, so she's very grateful. And I try to explain to her, you know, that even though Naomi and I never got each other, we did love each other. Sometimes that's family. So my sister, turns out, is an even worse cook than I am. So for years, we followed my dad's Christmas tradition, which was just to order the tamales from Abajeños in Culver City. My husband and I, these days, we like to pick up our tamales at Vaughn's, just the little 6-pack of dairy. And I know my grandma would forgive me because, first of all, hey, I did get married. And second of all, they're pretty great, right? You just roll it in a wet paper towel, stick it in the microwave for 2 minutes, and enjoy the taste of Mexican success. Thank you.
So Christmas we celebrate 1, maybe 2 days. Hanukkah, 8. But when you have Claudette Sutherland in your life, you celebrate 365 days of the year. Because you never know, but she knows intuitively when you're having a shitty day and she drops you an email and says, what do you think of this? Or I thought you might like this. Or she posts something on Facebook that just kind of reaches out and grabs you in the heart and slaps you in the face a few times. And I couldn't think of a better person to close our show. She's got 2 stories. That's how good she is. She gets 2 stories. Give it up for Claudette Sutherland.
Well, one is longer and one is shorter. So there's always that. Good evening. These are actually 2 letters. Hey, Larry, could this come up a little bit more, the span? Or are we?
Here's what we're going to do. You're going to step back. We're going to bring it to you.
Thud.
All right. Here we go. Let's get this out of the way.
Okay.
And then we're going to lower it a little bit.
Oh, thank you.
How's
That's kind
that?
of perfect. Thank
Now,
you.
Just don't step
Don't
any
go step
farther
any
back
further
or
back.
you will go flying.
Okay.
Like
With
Rudolph.
with all the witnesses.
Yeah.
Okay, these are 2 letters. One is called letter from Los Angeles, Thanksgiving Eve 2001. I'm just wrapping up my evening at 10 p.m. quite early for me. I've had half a bottle of white wine all to myself since 6 p.m. I'm cooking and listening to the travel people on NPR. Talk about waits at airports, e-tickets versus paper ones, what to do if you look Middle Eastern, which I don't, where to park, the exchange rate in Spain, and restaurants in San Francisco. All this time I was finishing up a very complex and very satisfying Indian pudding served at Durgan Park in Boston for tomorrow's dessert. You use unsulfured molasses in it, and I dip my finger in the bowl of the spoon where some of the molasses is pooled. And I have a memory of my mother doing the same thing for me. It's a deep flavor that clings to my tongue and makes me think of caves. Mm-hmm. I took the pudding out of the oven after baking at a low temperature for 3 hours in a larger pan of water. And it sits now on top of the stove, maturing, turning more and more dark and dense looking. You imagine you might only need 1 generous dollop. It's something my mother would have warned, be careful now, it's very rich, not wanting anyone at her table to swoon from sudden sweetness, I suppose. Then I watched a couple of pans and something slipped out of my hands, knocking a glass off the counter and making a large racket. Both dogs immediately showed up, checking to see if they were needed. I drove over to Whole Foods at 8:30 to pick up some loose ends, Parmesan, prosciutto, parsley, several things that begin with P, it seems. The young man in the small deli section proceeded to slice me a quarter-pound of prosciutto. I had said, "Slice it thin, please." I waited and I stood looking at all the babies who were folded into their little seats attached to the shopping carts, their mothers and daddies stopping to investigate briny peppers, wedges of cheese, olives and whole fishes and shrimp, while their babies gazed only at their mommies and daddies. I gazed only at the babies, thinking about the one that my son and daughter-in-law will be having in February. What will it be like? How will I ever control myself? How will I explain to friends that this is different? I'm not just another Hallmark grandma. This is my grandchild. This baby I was around for long before it was born, and my parents were around for it too, and theirs, and theirs, and theirs. Ancestors I don't even know will be looking up at me from that baby, and we will all gaze together. So, the boy in the deli is taking forever to slice the prosciutto. He comes to me and he says, "Sorry, this is taking so long, but I want to make sure to turn off the fat." And I say back, "No, don't. When he returns in a few minutes and holds out the flat, pink, translucent pieces to me, I say to him, I'm not really a low-fat person." He says back, "Well, me either, but my supervisor saw me slice again and said, trim off all that fat." I tried to tell him that fat really mattered, but, well, I say fat is the deal. He's wearing a beret. He smiles at me and he says, "Yes, it is. That's what I thought with prosciutto." I tell him he's right and we're happy to be together on this issue. We understand. I returned home and getting out of my car, I paused, pleased with the fragrance of fireplaces at night. And also, just for all you folks in the East who get all huffy about fall, I'd like to mention that the leaves on the liquid amber trees lighting my block are golden, bright golden.
Thank you! Yes!
Whirling in the rare wind, piling in the gutter, so don't tell me. And I decide to slice the carrots, which I won't have to do them tomorrow. I take out this mandolin slicing thing that Brendan and Sarah gave me a couple of years ago, which is set safely propped by the radio against one of the cabinets, because frankly, it scares me. It slices with razor-sharp blades, and I just don't know how to make friends with it. So I pat it at a distance, and I say, "Okay, honey," and I'm committed. I have never spoken to a piece of kitchenware ever. Surely I would have remembered. I mean, now I figure out how to adjust it and begin to push the carrots through the blades far too close to the tip of a finger. Okay, this is serious and I'm an amateur. I think about the funny letter I will write to Brendan and Sarah about blood and carrots. It will make them laugh. I get Band-Aids. I put the carrots in the fridge, I clean up, run the dishwasher so I'll have it empty for tomorrow. On the counter is a big bag of red potatoes, a basket of oranges and lemons and limes, and a bag of onions, and on the small table is a handsome grouping of Nouvelle Beaujolais, a couple of bottles of Chardonnay with narrative labels, and one serious red, which I'm told is impressive. Now, on top of the washer dryer, there are bottles of seltzer, a bowl of chopped pecans, resting plus some folded towels I must put away. So I turn off all my clothes and I turn off the lights before I go sit in the hot tub. The dogs rouse themselves from a sound sleep and come out to see if I'm all right, mistaking sighs of satisfaction for distress. It's pitch black, but I can see the outline of the 3-story deodara cedar towering over my roof of the house, all the way from the front yard. It always stills me. It's like having my own personal giant. Then climbing into bed, I remind myself that first thing in the morning I have to go back and look for that football. It's important to have a couple of people go out in the street and throw a ball around after that last piece of pie. And this is my Christmas letter. Where I stop. Christmas 2022. That's right now. A few days later, I was hoping it might rain more today. I put on some Dave Brubeck, emptied the dishwasher, bought some poinsettias for the front porch. I plugged the outside Christmas lights, which I left hanging throughout the year as if I lived in a trailer park. My friend Ronnie helped me get my small artificial tree down from the garage and put it on a box in the library so everybody can see it from outside. I pulled out the boxes of ornaments and I began to trim the little fake tree. I dug around in the bottom of a box, cursing all the while, trying to find more of those little hanger things which you attach to baubles in order to hang them. They were all tangled together, of course. I found a couple of ornaments that came from when I was a girl. When I found out Santa wasn't real, I didn't tell my mother, for I knew that she needed me to believe. Every so often, I stepped back to see where the next ornament might go. I remembered those kinds of icicles we used to have, which you separated to choose very carefully where to drape a single one and then another. They were beautiful, but they were made of lead, so there's that. Wait a minute. Okay, I'm almost done. So there's that.
No rush.
I'm almost finished with the tree. The small library looks splendid. Why the heck did I do this today? Why did I take the time? There are no children here. I did it for my mother. I did it for my father. They always thought of me. I did it for the girl I was.
Yeah.